Hello, welcome to this edition of Bayou Time. I'm your host, Keith Weissite, licensed clinical social worker. Thanks for joining us, however you may be joining us. We appreciate it very much. You may be able to tell by the backdrop there that a little bit of snow outside. And you know what? Sometimes it's snowing, sometimes it feels like it's raining. But ultimately, it's beginning to feel a lot like Christmas. And when it does, we have these expectations. We have all these perspectives that we have about how things should be. Well, life's a little different right now. You know, we're going through the second year of COVID, if you will. COVID was very difficult and challenging last year. COVID's probably even more difficult this year just because of the duration and the timing. And then we deal with Ida. And Ida presented so many more challenges and struggles because it puts on so many other layers of stress for us this year. And you may be wondering, how do I deal with it better? How do I handle these issues during the holidays? I will tell you, the holiday blues are very real. There are some people that just start to feel down a little bit during the holiday season. This particular holiday season may be more challenging than others. And so what I'd like to do is spend a little bit of time here in these next few segments talking about how you can identify what you can do to be able to handle the holiday season better, more effectively, and to find a way to enjoy the season. There's a lot of us that may not be wanting to be joyful at this time, but it is a joyous season, and it can be a joyous season. You know, there's a lot of people that have had challenges with regards to whether they have a home or not, whether they can get into their home or not because of damage or damages. And then for some people, they've been able to have some work done. Some have their roofs covered, some do not. Some have a new roof, some do not. So when my wife approached me and said, I've got to get to the Christmas decorations, I said, why? I don't understand. Why? The house is under major renovation. And my wife said, I need to know. I need to feel like something is normal in December. I need to be able to know that there is some sense of normalcy, and Christmas will do that for me, and more importantly, Christmas decorations will do that for me. It was very interesting to me that the most important thing that she wanted to do was to put up her nativity and highlight that nativity. It allowed us to focus on the reason for the season. The only new decoration that my wife bought was a decoration that said, he is the reason for the season. And I thought that what a perspective to have about Christmas this year. So if in fact you're at a point in a time when you are feeling like you're challenged to get in the Christmas spirit, a little later on I'm going to share with you some things that the kids are going to share with us about how to feel better about Christmas. If that doesn't work, then there may be some things that you can do to improve your perspective. Quite frankly, it's our expectation that very often challenges us with not being able to achieve the goals that we have, whatever those may be. And so I would like to help find a way to bring you a little bit of joy simply by asking you to do something differently. So I'm going to have Jen bring up an idea, and so she's going to bring up this perspective about how to dress for success for this holiday season. The best way that we can dress for success this holiday season is to do that very thing, DRESS. The first one is diet. And so as I ask you to think about the big D, and no, the big D doesn't mean Dallas, the big D doesn't mean divorce, the big D means diet. And so, thank you, Jen. If we think about what we're doing with diet, think about the fact that if you do go to a Christmas party, there are going to be drinks. If you do go to a Christmas party, there are going to be lots of snacks and food. Think about how you plan that. What do I mean by that? Well, if you know that you're going to, for us, a really lovely and enjoyable Christmas party that we were able to do, and thanks to Martin with HTV, we knew we were going to have really good food. That night, my wife and I decided we're going to eat a very healthy breakfast. We're going to have a salad for lunch, and we're going to be able to enjoy the food that we go and enjoy and at that party for that particular evening. Diet can make a huge difference in how we feel. We know that. We know that the foods that we take in, we know which foods are good or are not good for us. And I'll give you just one example. One of the things that people tend to do around the holiday season, especially with some of the places that we have with great pastries and great donuts, we get donuts delivered to the office at our work, get donuts delivered to the places where we go. Donuts are a large part of people's holiday season for whatever reason. And so I find myself seeing and having donuts around. There's a reason why donuts taste so good, and that's because of the way they're made. But my body says no. It is one of those focal points for me that I know that if I eat donuts, especially in the morning, my body is going to revolt that for the rest of the day. That's just one of those things that I individually know about myself. And so I typically say no to donuts almost all the time. And it's nothing against them because I think they taste fantastic. I would love to be able to eat donuts all the time. I don't because I know that as a diet, it doesn't work for me and I'm going to end up feeling worse. One of the things I'm going to ask you to think about is don't do anything that's going to make you feel worse. And we can control that with our diet. You can tell that it's starting to feel a little bit like Christmas. You can see the snow falling in the backdrop. And yes, we would like for there to be snow. We would wish for there to be snow. But you know, the only way for us to get snow down here, here where we live in South Louisiana, is to be able to get a cold front. Cold fronts come with their own set of issues. What is that? Rain. So for us to get cold weather, we need to get rainy weather. And very often, for those of us that are still dealing with housing, still dealing with a place that we're not living in our home, we're having to be outside more. Some of us are at family. Some of us are in tents. Some of us are in campers. And some of us are just dealing with the holidays a little differently. I am hoping that you'll stay with me as we continue to address how to dress for success for this holiday season. There's a way to be able to do that. The best way to dress for success is to focus on the 5 areas that we actually have a little bit of control over. Our behaviors can change a little differently. We can identify that. So Jen, if you could put that graphic back up for me, I appreciate it. We were able to talk about diet a little bit, and very often our diet will make a difference. And the next one is R for rest. Thank you, Jen. And so if in fact we know the kinds of things in our diet, what we eat and what we drink, or don't drink. And so it's very important because diet and rest go together. Diet and rest have a lot to do with each other because if in fact we are listening to ourselves, if in fact we're addressing some of the issues that we know we have with our diet, it will allow for us to rest or not. As we get older, our bodies don't necessarily tolerate the same things as well as they used to when we were younger. There are a lot of people I know that had an iron stomach. They can get anything that they wanted at any time. Well, now we realize that as we get older, our diet and our ability to rest sometimes impact each other. And so resting is so very important during the holiday season, especially this holiday season, because most of us have put a great deal of stress and pressure on ourselves about how to do things better. How do we improve such a difficult time? We need to find ways to rest. One of my favorite examples is that I know of a physician that spends about 30 minutes after his lunch hour, as part of his lunch hour, resting his eyes. Now, I'm just resting my eyes is a term you've probably heard from a grandparent. Excuse me, for me it was my grandmother. She wasn't sleeping, she was just resting her eyes. And it was just one of those things that we always knew that people did. I am starting to learn the value of that. They've done some research. They've said that taking a break, resting at least 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the afternoon, will be the best way to rejuvenate your body. If you're taking some time off, do that. Take some time off. Find a way to plan for some rest for yourself as you do it. It's so, so very important. Diet and rest, they go together. What you eat, what you drink will impact what you or how you can rest. And resting can be the most healthy thing you can do physically to improve your mental and emotional capacity. Let's go to the next one, Jen, if you don't mind. Bring that back up. Exercise. And listen, I know nobody wants to think about exercising at this time of year, but how about we find creative ways to exercise? So if we're eating correctly for the season, if we're finding a little time to rest, we also need to find a little time to get our blood going. For me, I have found myself doing a couple of things this holiday season. My wife and I, fortunately or unfortunately, are living in a camper, and our two dogs dictate our day very often. They tend to wake us up in the morning when they need to go out, no matter if it's raining or cold or hot. No matter what it is, they're going to dictate what we are or aren't going to do. I've found a way to use that as exercise for me. I've got to coordinate getting them all together and taking care of things to get them out the door. Just getting out the doors got some exercise capabilities to it. But once we get out, they're so excited to be outside. They love to be outside, love to hang out inside, love to be outside and go and run. So I go and spend some time with them wherever they lead me. If they're ready to go back to the backyard, we go to the backyard and we can go in there and they can run around some. And I get to run around and play with them and throw the ball with them and have them chase stuff. Or we go for a bit of a walk. Sometimes it's called a drag, and that's only because they're dragging me along because it's the two of them. But my exercise has changed a little bit. I get to go out with them 2-3 times a day. And doing that has allowed me to exercise a little bit more, to get some deep breathing in, for me to really be able to stretch my legs. And you know, living in a small camper is not easy. Living wherever you're living, if it's in a tent, if it's in a vehicle, if it's outside of your home, wherever it is you may be living, back in your home, but only part of that home, or maybe at school, but only in part of that school, find a way to get out and walk a little bit. You don't have to plan for or run a marathon, but find a way to do some exercise for you. I find myself walking in both directions instead of just going one way. In fact, the dogs are kind of thinking about that. You know, dogs are really smart. They really learn. They get to the edge of the concrete by the sidewalk, and they decide, they look up at me, we're going right today, we're going left today. And I find a way to do both. Find a way to increase your exercise a little bit. Quite frankly, shopping may be one of those other ways to have a little exercise in your life. Park a little farther away, walk a little farther to the store, walk around and shop instead of going to buy. It's a huge difference between my son and my wife and I. They go to shop and browse and evaluate and think. And when I go somewhere, I go to buy. There's a huge difference. I'm trying to find a way to do what they do. Go and shop a little bit. Diet, rest, and exercise. But if you want to find a way for yourself to help identify what to do, you need to dress for success this holiday season. We've already talked about diet. We've already talked about rest. We've already talked about exercise. What else can you do this holiday season? Jen, put that back up one more time for me. You get to find a way to sleep. And so it's really interesting that these go in a very specific order: diet, rest, exercise. If you do those things, thank you, Jen. If you do those things, it will allow you to get better sleep. It will allow you to have better quality sleep. We know that if we exercise a little bit, we sleep a little better. We know that if we eat a diet that's a little bit more in alignment with what our body wants and likes, we sleep a little bit better. We know if we find ways to get a little bit of rest and we're not so exhausted that we can't sleep, we find a way that we sleep a little bit better. Really important to find some time to get good rest and good sleep. And those things are sometimes different. Sleeping is so very important. Find a way to get a little bit more sleep than you've been. Relax your mind a little bit, and that may help. The last one to dress for success is this: diet, rest, exercise, sleeping, and, Jen, if you don't mind, support. Now, it's really important for us to consider what support means. Right now, support means looking around and seeing the good things that you have. We have a tendency of focusing on all the things that we don't have. We focus on all the things that are wrong. We focus on all the things that we haven't been able to do. We focus on all the things we can't do. We focus on what our insurance company has not done. Let's focus on what we can. The one thing you need to know is that you live in a community that supports you. You live in a community that cares about you. I can promise you, we've been spending a great deal of time and energy talking with you about how this community cares about each and every person, how we at HTV care about each and every person in this community. How do we know that? All we have to do is look to the kids. And so in a very special report, I want to share with you some of the special things that have happened this holiday season. Over at one of our learning academies, the QHS Learning Academy, their faculty and staff were able to have a wonderful annual Christmas program, and they put it on this year. And I want to show you some of these pictures as I share with you what they were able to do. They were all very, very excited. They received donation from the parents. They got pizza and cupcakes and cookies and juice boxes. These are just some of the shots of some of the people. They celebrated QHS Spirit Week. They had Pajama Day. Look at them, celebrating their pajamas. They had Character Day. They also dressed up like some of their favorite characters. And they also had Throwback Thursday. There's your Character Day. And so just some really interesting things that they were able to do. And then there you go, Throwback Thursday, looking back on dressing and how they did that. It was really important that they all celebrated, and they want to send a shout out to all their wonderful students and staff for their hard work throughout the first semester. But they also had some entertainment. One of that entertainment was one of the kids there that plays the violin. Let's listen in to what he did. Some very talented kids. They even sang some Christmas carols.
Jingle bells, jingle all the way. All the fun is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Hey, jingle bells, jingle all the way. All the fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Hey, dash through the snow with a one-horse open sleigh. Oh, where we go, laughing all the way. Carols ring, making spirits bright. What it is to ride and sing a sleigh song tonight. Oh, jingle bells, jingle all the way. All the fun is to ride in one-horse open sleigh. Hey, jingle bells, jingle all the way. All our fun is to ride in one-horse open sleigh.
And guys, if you forget what this Christmas season is about, look to the kids. They'll share it with you. They'll let you know where the joy is. And sometimes we just got to find a way to get ourselves out of the way. There's a way to dress for success this holiday season. A better diet, rest, exercise, better sleep. Find a way to know where your support is. And quite frankly, look to the kids. Because quite frankly, the joy of Christmas comes through the eyes of a child. Let's be childlike a little bit and enjoy this Christmas for the way we should. And remember the reason for the season. And that'll do it for this edition of Value Time. We thank you for tuning in. Take care, and local programming to follow.